Good day and welcome with this next best practices session about why now it is time to invest in your employer branding. My name is Janneke Roelofs and I will be hosting your session today. With new challenges in the hiring landscape, there are still opportunities to consolidate a strong brand and a unique candidate experience. In this session, Nimai Swaroop, Global Director Employer Branding and Talent Engagement, takes you through the journey on how Philip Morris International developed and launched their new global employer branding during 2020. There, of course, will be room to ask questions, which we'll cover straight after the presentation. You can put your questions already in the chat. Now let me welcome our wonderful speaker of today, Nimai Swaroop. With a strong passion for building brands, Nimai works at Philip Morris International, leading their employer brand and their talent engagement globally. As a leader in his field, Nimai held various senior leadership positions in large global organizations. He holds an MBA, bringing global experiences across brand management, talent acquisition, marketing, and transformation. I would like to welcome Nimai.
Janneke, thank you for the lovely introduction. This is Nimai here, absolutely delighted to join all of you at this celebration event today and share a bit more in terms of my own experience and thinking around employer branding, but also why now is a great time to invest in your employer brand. So we'll spend about 10 minutes walking through a couple of things. The first thing I'd like to share with you is just to give you a wider perspective on the talent landscape and also the impact of COVID-19 on that. As a result of that, it's also created opportunities for organizations to really take a step back and reflect inwards as much as outwards. And I will talk a bit about what opportunities lie ahead of you, especially around investing and launching an employer brand. And then thirdly, just take you through a fairly quick journey in terms of what Philip Morris International has been up to and why we launched our employer brand last year in September 2020. Okay, so what you will see now is a little bit about us. So I'm not sure if many of you know, but Philip Morris is a very large company. We've got about 73,500 employees, over 180 markets. We've got 150 million consumers, but also, I suppose, for me, what was the really turning point for the decision for me to apply for Philip Morris and be part of this fascinating transformation that we're going through is what you see there on the screen on the right, which is our vision to go smoke-free in the future. So it is absolutely our vision in Philip Morris to actually dedicate and move into the future, which is free of cigarettes and actually introducing smoke-free products. So that fascinating transformation has meant a lot of opportunities for us to transform the business, but equally for us to bring through what it means to be part of both Philip Morris, but also this transformation. And that's why the employer brand plays a really key role for us. Now, I'm just going to give you a sense of what's happening in the wider landscape around talent. And what you will see appear on your screen is really some of the real, what we call mega trends starting to impact both the talent landscape, but also the ability to attract and retain talent. What you will find in that particular slide as you see that is a couple of things emerging, and I'll pull out one or two key themes. What you'll find increasingly in the talent market is this idea of the self-brand. The emergence of the self-brand is really about this being about the individual rather than just being about coming into organizations and staying in there for a long, long time. So how can you contribute as an employer to my personal development, to my career progression, but also recognizing I will come in, upskill, cross-skill, and perhaps move somewhere else. So that is something we've got to both acknowledge, but also respond to in how we both look at retaining, but also attracting talent. The other really interesting shift we're seeing socially is this emergence of social conscience and value-based decision-making. Values, purpose are starting to play a very key role in organizations. So it's really important when we are building out an employer brand, or when we are looking at how we position who we are as an employer, we bring through a very clear sense of purpose. I mean, in our case, that real clear sense of purpose is our vision to move to a smoke-free future. And really, for that reason, it's important for organizations to focus on that. And then the third area, which is really around this concept of, how is micro-learning and all of the various digital impact right across everything we do playing and having an impact on how we engage, but also attract. So let's walk through a bit more in terms of what those opportunities are and why now may be a good time for you to consider investing in your own employer brand. So what do you see really ahead of us, especially given COVID-19 and given all the impact over the past sort of 12, 18 months and considering we're still going through that, and there is still some time before we see real light at the end of the tunnel. What is clear is that it's clearly starting to shape the workplace, the future of work, but also the employee experience more broadly. So the first thing, what we have definitely looked at, and I would strongly advise in looking at employer brand practices, and when you look at developing your own brand, is take a holistic view of how the employer brand can have an impact, but also influence the employee life cycle rather than just seen as a recruitment tool. It's very important, and I'll demonstrate to you how we're doing it, is we have looked at developing our employer brand, which actually took about 18 months, because we were really clear that we wanted that employer brand to look at both the external perception, but also look at what the internal lived experience is of our employees. So it's very, very important we consider looking at the employee experience right across recruitment, onboarding, but also right through the talent, processes, but also the various life stages and experiences that employees go through in the organization. Okay. The second piece of interesting research was done by Universum in March, April 2020. And what they looked at is asking organizations and posing the question, what are the 3 words you would like to be remembered for? And it's extremely important, just like, we would all want to be remembered for, and the legacy we leave behind is really important for organizations to equally be very, very clear, but also have a very clear understanding of what are the things that they would like to be remembered for. And these are some of the things that organizations responded on when they were asked that question at the time, that they want to be, focusing on their employees, people first, want to be caring as an employer, focus on safety, but also very human in how they are actually interacting and dealing with people. So again, very important for you to, consider what are the things that you want your employer brand to live and breathe as you develop something which will be both interesting, relevant, but engaging for employees, but also for candidates outside that wish to join your organization. Okay, so let's then have a look at specifically what are the things that have then, as a result of this, been done at Philip Morris. So I'm just going to click on the next slide. Hopefully it should come up now. There we go. Okay, so what are we doing at PMI? I think it'll be really interesting to spend some time to share with you what are the things we're doing at Philip Morris, and also how we've taken and approached the employer brand at Philip Morris. Okay, so very quickly, that's our vision. So to create an inspiring and powerful employer brand to attract exceptional talent to PMI, but also remember that word retain and attract exceptional talent to PMI. So our promise to the world, must equal the lived experience of our employees internally as well. And here we go. We're just going to take you away from the presentation into a website that we had actually created to help launch our employer brand internally. So if you bear with me, we'll do that now. And hopefully you should all be able to see my screen in a moment. And this is essentially what we have created as our overall storyboard of our new employer brand at Philip Morris. So let's go through, why did we do that? Four reasons for it. One was to, of course, attract the best that we can for our business to help that transformation. Second was to bridge the talent gaps. We all have talent and skills gaps across organizations. For us to be able to bridge those, but also retain the great people we've got in the organization and really shift the diversity balance within the organization across a number of areas. So what we did, and the area I want to focus on, is we spent a huge time on our listening strategy. So our research and listening was really around making sure that we are looking at three different lenses when we pull together what is it that we need to use as insights to develop our brand. And I would again recommend you taking time to reflect on this, because something like this would really prove useful in how you develop that brand. So firstly, internal insights. What are employees actually saying about you as an employer? What do they love? And what are the things they dislike about being in the organization? It could be bureaucracy, it could be decision-making, it could be hierarchy, it could be politics. So these are the things you have to be very conscious of, but also tune into culturally in terms of where the organization is. Secondly, the external analysis is really important. And this is about understanding what do employees potentially that want to join you, or candidates that want to join you, expect of you as an employer? And then what do they currently perceive of you as an employer? That will give you the gap. Perhaps in some areas you're doing very well, but in certain areas there may be a gap in terms of what other candidates are expecting of you, and here is what you are currently perceived as. So again, very important to look at how you can reposition who you are as an employee to make yourself attractive. And then, of course, looking at the global trends around, how do you come across as being omni-channel, multi-channel accessible, inclusive, but also ensuring that you are both reflecting your consumers, but also ensuring that you are digitalizing the way you are presenting yourself as an organization. So you have to be up with and in tune with the trends across the globe. So what we did is we used all that research and we distilled those insights, and we came up with what we would call the employee deal. For us, the employee deal, which if you think of it is the core of the apple, is what really makes us almost different, in the sense that that's the contract we almost have with our employees and us as an employer in terms of PMI. And we developed 4 key messaging pillars, which will be the basis of all of our communications coming out of Philip Morris across the globe. And that's really important, because that brings consistency, that brings ensuring that the brand promise is across every touch point of both employees, but also candidates externally. Talking about revolutionary change and the fact that we are transforming a business to go smoke-free, the fact that you have an opportunity to come and shape the future. Relationships are very important, but also the networks that you have to be able to collaborate and work with to get the work done, and then really come in, rather than for a lifetime employment opportunity, come in to enhance your experiences both professionally and personally as well. So again, this formed the basis of all of our work as we started to look at our overall proposition. And then very quickly, what we did is we went back into history, and I was just listening to the previous session around acknowledging the past, but also acknowledging and respecting the really good things that we can take forward in terms of history. And one of the interesting moments that we found ourselves in was looking at all of the big or small changes in history, or the small almost voices in history that led to the big changes. Whether it was, for example, the LGBTQ movement, whether it was the fall of the Berlin Wall, or whether it was actually the fight for equal pay for equal rights. And this is the photograph from the Ford Dagenham factory in the UK. All of these moments, when they started small, the originators never thought they would actually make such big, massive changes and impacts on society and change the course of history. That is the same inward reflection we've taken at Philip Morris to look at actually being a tobacco company. We've taken the bold step of saying we're going to go smoke-free in the future. So for us, really, this moment in time has been encapsulated in our proposition, which we've now developed, which for us is Make History. And Make History is the basis and the platform for all of our branding that we will now have across our talent and our recruitment across Philip Morris. And what that really is trying to bring out is this is a moment for you to come in and join an organization that's truly making history and actually creating the future for our industry and our sector, but also a future that you can shape and impact the lives of billions of people out there. So that was what we did. And then I think what was really important was the measurement. One of the real key areas, is how do you actually measure this, both in terms of brand, but also in terms of experience. And what we've always been really clear on is that there is an impact on both some hard metrics around brand awareness, around followership, around engagement, but there's also some real clear metrics around converting the right quality of candidates coming into the organization, because your proposition starts to deselect those that are not fit, but actually select into the real specific skill sets and the behaviors that you're expecting to attract into the organization. So we've got a whole set of metrics behind this that actually support the overall brand. Just given time, I didn't want to take too much more time on this. I think what I just wanted to show you in the visual identity is just in terms of how that features in terms of the actual execution. Here is an example that you can see, of one of our factory workers in Turkey who's talking about shaping the future. And again, what this is trying to demonstrate is, you can see Philip Morris in the background, but also almost the transition to this future of making history. And what we've got here, August saying is, that he's helping shape the future. And this is for both himself and also for PMI. And he signs off on the advertising material and all the work and all the messaging that we push out. So it becomes really personal to the brand, really personal to him. And it's actually reflected in his story rather than just simply our Philip Morris International logo as being the attraction point. This is about the employee being in front of the brand rather than the brand being in front of our people. Okay, so with that, I'm going to now pause and hopefully, I know that was very short and quick, but hopefully I can answer some questions. And with that, Janneke, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Nimai, for that great, I say that view into how you at PMI did the whole employer branding journey last year. We already have some questions coming in, and I think I want to start with this one.
Sure.
In this current situation, what do you consider to be the main points of contact that a company should prioritize on when it comes to the best employee journey? And when it comes to for the purpose of the employer brands and the employee experience?
Yeah, thank you. Great question, by the way. I think one of the biggest gaps I found in my experience has been that organizations haven't really mapped out their own employee journeys, because certain moments of truth in organizations for employees are sometimes not known. So my first guidance and counsel would be really understand your employees, what motivates them, what are the real critical points that are defining for them. So in our case, what we definitely found is there's a very key point in terms of we engaging with someone for the first time, what we call the moments of truth, which is how are we coming across as an organization in those moments of truth at the point of first contact, at the point of interviewing, at the point of further assessment, at the point of onboarding, at the point of them starting on the first day, having all of their equipment, everything else ready, at the point of them getting onboarded into their business with their new line manager. So I would say all of these things you should map out, because these are moments that is important to everyone, every one of us, whether we work for a small or a large company. And then what was important for us was to make sure this employer brand touches right through that in how we are communicating, engaging, but also what we're promising our starters, but also our employees. So I would start with understand what those are first for you in your organization.
Thank you, Nimai. That makes a lot of sense, actually. A little bit more of a practical question from our audience, and it has to do with the measurement part, which you covered also in the presentation. So, which type of KPIs are we need to think of? So what actually do you measure as a company?
Absolutely. Great question, by the way. It's one of those questions that come to most brand and communications teams. How are you adding value? So I would say that we have two sets of KPIs. So we look at the qualitative measures and the quantitative measures. On the qualitative measures, we look at brand awareness. So are we improving our brand awareness and our ranking as an employer of choice for certain segments in the early talent space, but also in the experienced hires. So that's around brand awareness. We also track our Glassdoor ratings, what our employees and others saying about our experience as Philip Morris, as an organization. So we look at that in terms of experience. We then also track specifically our candidate experience coming through the recruitment process. So is that living up to the brand or not? And that's done through an NPS, Net Promoter Score. And then on the quantifiable metrics, we look at cost per hire, the quality of candidates coming in, but also what we specifically look at is what is our current health of the talent pools for the critical skills that we need. Are we able to engage the right skill set that we need for the current and the future demand of the business? And is our brand pulling that skill set in? So almost a CRM, a candidate relationship management approach to build talent pools of those that we need. And the health of those pools is what we will continue to track moving forward.
I hear you say a lot of time engage, and that's actually ties up very well with this next question, Nimai, because how do you get engagement from your employees to share externally? What do you do so to be ambassadors? When it comes to being ambassadors, right? Your employees, of course, are your first number one ambassadors. So what do you do?
Absolutely. Great question, by the way. And I can tell you in all my experience in doing this over the last 20 years, you have to start from the inside. And that is why we took a very conscious decision to not launch the brand externally until we have internally launched the brand, got our employees to go through the experience of what our new brand is, understand the proposition, and have what we would call a narrative that they are able to almost socially transmit when they're talking to family, friends, and others or candidates in the marketplace. So it is very important to get firstly, starting off with the insight, right? The insight was always internal first. Let's understand from our employees, what are they missing? What do they want? By using the internal insights, we already ensured our proposition and our new brand was based on employee insights. So it already started to resonate. And we tested this, by the way, which I'd recommend is very important to do, is test your proposition internally and externally. Our employees were very happy in terms of what we were trying to push out, and it was resonating with them. And as a result, when we then launched it, it felt similar and it felt something they can affiliate themselves with. And that's how we got the traction and their ambassadorial support to then champion the brand outside. Always start inside and always start with the research and insight first.
Thank you, Nimai. I love the fact that you talk about engagement a lot, and I think that's also one of the key messages you showed us today as well in your presentation. We have time for one more question, and I would like to, looking at time, hope you can give a short answer to this one. When it comes to the top 3 of employer branding trends, what do you look for when it comes to the next year, the coming year?
Great, absolutely. So the first is what is the consumer marketing trends telling us around consumer behavior? Remember, candidates are consumers as well. So this is around technology, platforms, what is evolving, what's coming through. That's very important. You have to stay in touch and up to date. So that's looking at trends and technology. The second is look at being very insight driven around what you are pushing out into the marketplace. Everyone is looking now for proof points and facts. You have to be very insight driven. And I would say the third one is around authenticity and honesty. In a world that we find ourselves in, it's very important for your brand to come across as being authentic and honest to who you are, not what you would simply want to be. So it's very, very important. You look at those when you are developing something like this.
That ties nicely with that tech phrase about make history, right? Being authentic, where you come from, know your story, and then it ties nicely in. I would like to thank you, Nimai, for your time today and for the interesting and inspiring best practice you shared about why actually now it is the time to invest in your employer brand, and taking us through your journey, what you and your team have went to when it comes to revamping and relooking at your employer brand last year. And I think that I would say, and if I also hear you speak the last couple of minutes, Nimai, I think that any organization that wants wants to be strong in a time where the labor market is reshaping itself, I think you simply cannot allow you as a company, being a company, to not do anything about employer branding, especially now.
Right.
That's what I took away from you. So thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for all the questions. And yeah, congratulations all top employers.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Janneke. All the best.